Hi coaches, this is Heather Rayleigh from Mosaic, a senior behavior health consultant. Most of you I've met before, and I do know, and we all want you to know how much we truly appreciate the work that you're doing, especially at a time like this, but every day and always. And we really do miss being on site with everybody. And so again, even though we're not there physically, please know that we are here for support in any way, at any time. So please do continue to reach out to us, and we'll be in touch. So today's topic is how to support your coworkers during COVID-19. And when I think of coworkers for peer recovery coach, we think of not just other peer recovery coaches, but you're part of a larger unit, either an ED team or an OB unit. So your coworkers really consist of a number of individuals. And so in the ED, you're working alongside of doctors, nurses, you're really on the front lines of all of this. As far as other peer recovery coaches in the ED, you have a team of peer recovery coaches that you're typically working with. OB coaches, you're also working with doctors, nurses, you're often working more closely with case managers and social workers as well. But you are the peer recovery coaches on your unit, and oftentimes you have a relationship with the coaches in the ED or from the health department or both, but you do serve as part of the larger treatment team and care team as the ED coaches do as well. On the OB units too, you're also dealing with some different scenarios. You're dealing not only with a mom, but oftentimes significant others and families and children that may be involved as well. New moms right now are having babies in an extremely uncertain and stressful time, and they're bringing a baby into the world at a time of unrest and instability, and so it's something to keep in mind. So what can you do in a time like this to help support your coworkers? Number one, you can check in on each other. So there are a lot of ways to communicate. Pick one. Send a text, give a call, send an email, ping them in some way just to say hi, how are you? Is there anything that I can do to help? People may seem okay, but this is something that is a struggle for a lot of us on the inside, and some of us are better at hiding it than others. And so just a kind word to reach out and say hello, how are you, really could go a long way. Buddy system. So pick someone, connect daily, whether you need to or not. If you start by asking, if you start to notice changes in your buddy's behavior, maybe their mood, maybe they're becoming irritable, maybe they're starting to distance themselves, ask. It's okay to not be okay, and you all know that, and I want to remind you of that. So your buddy may be somebody new that you don't really know too well, and you get to know them through this process, or it may be somebody who you've known for a long time, you've grown to trust, and you get to know each other even further and really are just there for each other to check in on each other. One thing that I have noticed working in the EDs, especially over the last few weeks, and I admit is hard to do, is to not take things personally, especially right now. Your emergency departments are under a lot of stress right now. And even though the emergency departments in the last 2 weeks have been pretty slow from what I've heard from Baltimore and the DC area emergency departments, keep in mind that the nurses and the providers are really being pulled in a lot of different directions, called into a lot of meetings. There are a lot of preparations in place for what they believe is coming. And so even though they may not appear busy, there is really a lot going on and a lot of added stress to their job. And so please try as best you can to not take it personally. Healthcare workers are sleeping less, they're working more. They may start to see increased volumes in patients pretty soon. And also to consider too that many healthcare workers recognize that there's this risk associated with their job. They've accepted that, right? But a lot of your healthcare workers may be struggling with the fact that they may be exposing themselves in the hospital system and then carrying that home to their loved ones at home, and now potentially transmitting an illness, and that is probably weighing on them. So staff may be, exceptionally short or may snap at you. Please try to not take this personally. Using your motivational interviewing skills. And so your MI skills don't just come in handy when you're working with patients, right? But with other people as well, your coworkers, for instance. And so you were chosen as a coach because you do this naturally. You're caring, you're concerned, and you're a good listener. All those skills that we can't necessarily teach, and then we work through our training and our support to enhance those skills. Your skills were enhanced through that training and your experience so far in the job, and they'll be put to good use. Nurses, doctors, social workers, care managers, they're all working with especially stressed patients, families, and may need somebody just to listen or to hear them out. Your fellow peers and yourself may be limited in your patient interactions right now. You might have to suit up before seeing a patient right now, might have to take extra precautions, and they may just need to vent about these inconveniences. One thing I also did read about was on secondary traumatic stress, STS. I've typically known this as compassion fatigue, and this is, especially given the epidemic, some of our responders, our first responders and ED staff may be really struggling with this. Their world has changed even more significantly over the last month. Their symptoms of STS or compassion fatigue include withdrawal, guilt. Perhaps check in on them, make sure, talking to your doctors and nurses and asking, when's the last time you took a break, and did you get a good night's sleep last night, and really encouraging that self-care that typically as coaches we know is extremely important, and oftentimes in times like this our healthcare workers may not be thinking of that so much. Compassion fatigue is something that I've typically heard related to caregivers, typically therapists, counselors, and especially peer recovery coaches as well. You're spending your days caring about other people, worrying about other people, helping other people, and again, to make sure that you need that same amount or more self-care in a time like this to keep yourself on track and able to help and care for others. And so people in the emergency department, your coworkers may seem unaffected, but just to be mindful that they could be experiencing what we call compassion fatigue. And I did see this quote too, and feel that it does ring true right now, that caring too much can hurt. Often happens when we care too much without really balancing with our own self-care. So I want to remind you, and you could make it your duty to remind others that self-care is important, especially at a time like this. So it's something to be mindful of. So that's all I have for today. We do have a one-pager attached to this. I want to thank you for your time, and again, thank you for everything that you're doing, and we cannot wait to be back out there working with you face to face. Have a great day, everybody.